Hey guys, it's the Comics Kid 2099, and I'm here to do a video that was sort of requested. One of my subscribers, a Dre2U, also known as Dream Killer, he or she, I'm assuming it's a he, if not, please correct me, he told me that in several of my videos I seem to complain a lot, and to be honest, he or she is very correct. I do complain quite a bit. Mostly in reviews. I tend to go more toward the strict side of reviewing things. When I review, I look for plot inconsistencies, I look for logical problems, sometimes character flaws. That's usually what I go for. Sometimes it's very hard for me to find something positive to say about a book or a TV show. I had noticed this a long time ago, even before I started doing YouTube videos. And this has been pointed out to me now in the comments, and so I wanted to take the time here to do an entire video of 5 things that I love about comic books and being a comic book reader. Because you have to know, even though I'm very critical, and I seem to be very negative about comic books when I read them, I really do love them. And it's because I have such a love for these comic books that I'm very critical sometimes, maybe a little too much so. In this video, I'm not going to be using any sarcasm. I'm going to be totally sincere. I'm going to be talking about the 5 things that I love the most about being a comic book reader or just a geek in general in this particular field. Number 1, in no particular order. Even after something like 11 or 12 years of reading comic books, I still get excited sometimes. Sometimes I'll look at something and I'm very jaded. I have this whole, same old, we've seen this before. But very often, more often than I would have thought, I look at something, I hear someone talk about something, and I get giddy. I feel like I'm 11 years old again, and I'm just super excited for the stories, the art, the concepts, the ideas behind it all, and I still love it. Now, sometimes whenever I pick up something that I'm really excited for, that excitement might dampen a little after reading it, but I think it's really wonderful that after so long of reading comics, and this may not seem like such a long time to some people, but after a decade of my life reading these things, I still love them. I still get excited for them quite often, even if it's something that I might not necessarily approve of when reading it later. Number 2. This is something that's not necessarily strictly comics, but I absolutely love the large community of geeks that is out there. This is more because of the invention of the internet and the explosion of the internet in the last 10 years. Interestingly enough, both my reading of comics and the such hugeness of the internet both kind of coincide a little bit. But I absolutely love that there are so many people out there who are just like me, and they can read the same books as me, they can get excited for the same things, and I can talk to them just with the click of a button. 20 years ago, this would have been, while not impossible, it would have been very unlikely. If you wanted to contact somebody who lived 2 states away, who was also a fan of the same comic book that you were, you had to pick up a pen and paper and write them a letter if you knew their address. Now, with the internet, you can Skype call, you can Facebook, you can talk to each other on YouTube, forums and message boards. I know I met several people on the Marvel message boards several years ago, and I still communicate with some of them every day. So I really love just this community of people, and we don't always agree on what's good and what's bad and what comics we enjoy, but it's still great to have people who share your interests that you can talk to. Number 3, I love that even though Marvel and DC have been going strong for over 50 years in both cases, you can still relatively easily get into any series that you want to get into. If you are wanting to jump into, say, Spider-Man, the trade paperbacks and the graphic novels make it relatively easy to do so. I mean, you might not enjoy the essential format of the books, the black and white ones with the 25 or so issues collected within, but it's really fantastic that if you're interested in getting all the early Spider-Man stuff, you can do that with relative ease. Before the explosion of the trade paperback market, you could be looking at paying hundreds of dollars for just a couple of issues in the early Spider-Man stuff. But now, All you have to do is pay that much and you can get 10 or 12 trades. It's really wonderful that all of this is made so available to people who are my age or younger, who we didn't actually grow up in the beginning of the Marvel age of comics, and this can also apply to DC. And so, even though I might not have been around for Walt Simonson's Thor or Chris Claremont's X-Men, I can go back and I can still read these stories in a way that is available to me, and I love that. That is, in fact, probably I wouldn't even be reading comics if it wasn't for the trade paperback. So, absolutely I love that. Number 4. This might be a strange one, but what I really love these days is the equally valid interpretations of certain characters. You look at someone like, say, Superman, and with Superman, if, let's say, J. Michael Straczynski is writing a long 2 or 3 year arc on Superman, after he's done, let's say someone like Scott Snyder or Jeff Johns comes on after he's done. So, basically, you might not have any reference to J. Michael Straczynski's run on the book. And I love that. Actually, it's not so much that I love it, but what I love is you can have this entire run from a certain creator, and even though Superman is an ongoing character, he's got this ongoing series, he's never going to stop showing up in comic books, you can look at the J. Michael Straczynski run, or the Scott Snyder run, or the John Byrne run. You can look at all of these things as a complete story in and of themselves. I can look at the John Byrne era, and I can look at that as a run. And in a lot of ways, Superman might act very differently there than he is when he's being written by Mark Waid or Kurt Busiek. And I just really love the way each run, I don't necessarily value one over the other. Even though they are all supposed to be dealing with the same character in the same world, and in theory, Mark Waid's Superman is in fact the same Superman as John Byrne's, I typically tend to look at it as, okay, I can read this run by itself, and I can enjoy it as a limited story of sorts. That may not have made a whole lot of sense. It makes sense in my head, but I have a lot of trouble trying to word it and make it out there into the atmosphere, if that makes any sense. Number 5. What is the last thing on my list? When I first started reading comic books, do you know how many superhero movies typically came out a year? It usually varied between 1 or 2. And a lot of times I wasn't even allowed to watch them. Movies like Blade and The Punisher, I had to wait until I was old enough to see these movies because they were rated R. But you had movies like X-Men, Daredevil, Hulk, Spider-Man, and usually these only came out 1 or 2 a year. Now, you could easily see 5 or 6 superhero movies all coming out in 1 year. And while sometimes I do get tired of seeing so many of them all at once that it tends to just kind of muddle together into this one kind of formulaic thing, I think it's fantastic that people who are never going to set foot in a comic book shop can now experience superheroes and the things we love about superheroes for the first time. Also, those of us who have been reading superheroes for most of our lives, we can finally get to see some of these things that we love about the characters on the screen, in movement, in motion. It's really, really great. In some cases, I might be a huge fan of the X-Men from 20 years ago, but over the years, everything that I've loved about the series has maybe dwindled away. But every time an X-Men movie comes out, I get super excited and I go watch it. And most of the time, the things that I used to love about the X-Men from so long ago, those things are all brought back together and put into one movie. And it gives me a chance to realize, yeah, this is why I love the X-Men. And that's just an example. This can apply to anything in any movie. If you're a big fan of Thor, that might be what you had with the Thor movie. If you're a big fan of Green Lantern, that might be what you had in the Green Lantern movie. And so, these are only 5 of the things that I really love about being a geek in the comic book world. Some of these weren't explicitly exclusive to comic books, but I tried to keep it in that area. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know for you, Dre2U, I am going to try to be a little bit more balanced in my opinions in future videos. You may see a couple more videos here down the line that I filmed a couple of days ago where I might still have that negative attitude, but I do want to let you know that I am going to try and do better on that regard. So, having said that, I hope you guys had a fantastic holiday. Hope you guys continue to have a good rest of the year. And this is Comics Kid 2099, signing out.